Welcome to Sisters in Arms. I'm Carrie Ann Alclair.
And I'm Renee Gagne. Together we serve as a Second Amendment resource for our communities.
Today we have two special guests from GOAL, Gun Owners Action League. We have John Green, the Director of Education and Training, and Mike Harris, the Director of Public Policy. Welcome, gentlemen. Again, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We have a lot going on in Massachusetts. But before we go on, could you just give us a little brief explanation of what GOAL is and what we do for Massachusetts?
There you go. All right. I was wondering. I was like, you've been here a lot longer than I have. So GOAL is we are the #1 Second Amendment advocacy organization in Massachusetts. We've been around for 50 years, because GOAL's exactly 10 years older than I am. We're the local NRA affiliate. And we have, what are we, about 25,000 members?
Pretty close to it.
Yeah.
Pretty close to it.
But we've been involved with Second Amendment policy and advocacy and just general gun stuff in Massachusetts.
And training and education.
Training, education.
Yeah,
Yep.
let me add to that.
Yes.
I always like to
Yeah.
hear, you've been with us for how many years now?
Almost 4.
Great addition to the staff.
I've been enjoying it.
Oh yeah, we've enjoyed your Carrie Ann, you bring a lot to the table.
Yes.
Thank you.
So
Time.
I've been with GOAL for 25 years now, going on 25 years this month. Yeah. And I'd like to sum it up. We advocate, we educate, and we train. And it's all about sharing our Second Amendment civil rights with members of the community. And what a great community we have here in Massachusetts and New England. A lot of great gun owners, right?
Oh, yeah.
With the hunting, the recreation, the competition, the collecting, and of course so many new folks getting into it for their protection. It was, you said at camp, let's hope and pray you never have to use a firearm to protect yourself, but it's good to have one if you need one.
Absolutely. And we have so much going on right now in Massachusetts that we have
what
a
is
lot
your
to talk
role?
about.
Talk about your role.
Oh.
Yeah.
We never talk about your role. The newest addition to GOAL.
Oh, I'm actually, I feel like I've
went
been on
pro.
a job interview for like 5 years. What is it?
I said you went pro.
So I'm the women's advocacy director. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Now I'm all nervous. You put me on the spot. Advocacy director and women's program assistant. So
Co.
Yep,
I don't like the word assistant.
Aw.
We're a co. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I get the opportunity to do a lot of training with some folks, pepper spray, refuse to be victim, and we do women on target events. So I'm just excited to be part of this because it's like a dream come true. And of course, I advocate, which we've pretty much been doing for like 5-6 years now. So being the leader of Armed Women of America and part of the Women for Gun Rights, I just feel like I've been on a job interview for 5 years and I didn't know it.
And you get to work with this guy, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I honestly, I can't tell you. It's amazing to be able to work with some fantastic folks, Mike Harris and John and Jim and Angie. Y'all like got me to this point, and it's just I pinch myself every day and I smile because I'm really doing what I want to do and protect our civil rights for not just us, but for my ladies, for myself, for my family.
And it's fun to work with something that you actually care about every day. Like you get to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I get to go to work today. Instead of, oh, I have to go to work today.
It's exciting. We can't forget our board of directors. I mean, we have some amazing talent on the board of directors.
Yes.
Longevity in the Second Amendment civil rights battle here in
Garrett
Massachusetts.
Holcomb, the president. Jeff Strider's the vice president.
Yes.
Let's see, we got Bill Dalpy, who's secretary. And
Treasurer.
And then Fawn Gracie, she's the
secretary, I think.
secretary.
Right? Yeah.
And then I know there's another guy, but I don't remember his name because he's.
We have Mike Folo,
John
Folo.
Pajak.
John Pajak. Now, John has been in law enforcement literally his whole life.
Yeah.
Military and law enforcement. And
Right.
We had John on the show.
Who's a
very
major,
smart
right?
Yes.
with regard to regulations, right? Hunting regulations. He was major for the environmental police officers in Massachusetts for a lot of years.
I love talking to him about that.
I think he was
stuff. It's
a major in
fascinating.
the National Guard, too. Wasn't he? Yeah,
And don't
he's
we
a
have
big
another
deal.
gentleman as well?
Mike Lupacini.
Yes, thank you.
And Michael just retired from Upton Police Department as a sergeant.
Yep.
So Michael and I did a lot of Eddie Eagle gun
Mike's
safety
awesome.
Oh, I
programs
would love to see
in
that
the
back in
in
the
the
system.
Upton Grafton area.
Yeah.
And Michael's a Marine Corps veteran,
Yeah.
and he taught rifle for Massachusetts Municipal Police Training Council.
Wow.
So
He's
some
a funny
esteemed law
guy, too.
enforcement.
So we got a
funny guy.
lot
I
of
like Mike.
wonderful, amazing people part of GOAL.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's unfortunate because I don't think not everybody's in front of the camera, not everybody sees everybody's face, but there's a lot to it. So there's only 5 staff, and for the whole entire Commonwealth. And I really want to stress the importance that we're fighting for your civil rights. We're fighting for everything. We're creating safer communities, and I think that's the most important part of it.
Certainly.
And I just get really revved
And
up
we
about
have to
it.
thank all our wonderful volunteers.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Big
have some
time.
amazing volunteers.
Yep.
Because goal isn't just the staff, it's the members. That's what goal actually
Absolutely.
is. I always look at the staff as, and even the board of directors, as more of a, like an information clearinghouse,
Yeah,
kind of.
you say that, and I like
that's-
that.
That's
yeah.
kind
Guidance.
of, yeah, guidance.
A lot
Like
of guidance for us.
we read the top of the box in the board game so that everybody else can play. Like, you know,
Yeah.
that's a paraphrase line from Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. And I think, John, you mentioned the volunteers, and I think it's so important to mention that, people step up and they're a voice when we can't, because we're so busy with so many other things. We can't be expected to be everywhere at all times. We can't expect to be at every club speaking on our behalf on fighting for the civil rights and teaching people on how to do so. So when you have somebody like Derek who's volunteering to do this rally, and other people who stepped up and say, hey, when we're ready for the petition, let me know, I want to volunteer with that.
Yeah,
the referendum. So it's just super important. But
And
anyways.
I love goal for all the secondary organization groups that are going on in Mass, like the Armed Women of America. When we have questions, like I feel like they're the big brother that we go to when we have questions.
Yeah.
Jim Wallace has provided you a lot, and so many other organizations,
Yeah.
both in state and out of state. He's provided a lot of guidance.
Talk about institutional memory, man.
Yep.
You two,
Yeah,
the two of you guys
together,
combined,
we're
what?
pretty much 50 years.
Yeah.
Jim started a few years after I did. And I'll never forget when we were discussing, okay, who's going to be the next executive director? I'm like, oh, my phone's ringing.
There we go.
You're like, not
Out of here.
Jim's amazing at that position.
Yep.
Right? Amazing
It's
at
all
that.
natural.
He's just got a really good mind for for that kind of stuff. Like he used to walk through the State House with him and just have everybody be like, "Hey, it's Jim. Nice to meet you."
he's like
Good
a
to see ya."
famous guy.
Yeah, and it's really
He just
funny
walks in the offices and he's
Well,
like, hey, I want to introduce you to
yeah, but
Henriette
it's-
Auclair. I'm like,
it's that, and it's also like there's a lot of people who don't really see things the way that we do, and to put it nicely. And Jim is just an accessible point of contact for all of those people to reach out and ask questions. Even if they don't agree with us, they always know that we're going to give it to them straight.
And I
guess.
think in the beginning when I first started, I was so green that I was so afraid of asking questions, but not
I
with
don't
you
agree
guys.
with that at
Not
all.
with you guys. Not with you guys at all.
Were we in the same
Zoom
staff?
in on
know,
their
right?
face. They're like, what?
I was never afraid to call you up and Jim up and ask a question,
good.
but I never knew
Good.
who to ask, and then I was afraid to ask, and then you guys came like right after we started the chapter, and it was like, oh, it was amazing. I tell Renee all the time, I feel like we were born rich in the 2A community.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Because we
In the
weren't
2A community.
Oh man.
in the 2A community.
Not in our
Definitely the two-way
pocketbook.
community.
Because we were green with
Right.
everything.
You don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
Yes.
And
True
then,
words.
but we had really amazing
We
people
did.
to be our mentors
We
and,
did.
and guide us. And I feel like every day I'm learning something new. And thank you for being so patient with me, just so you know.
And it's nice to have Jim's integrity has never been questioned.
Never.
Right?
No.
He has more integrity than
Once at a hearing in January last year. Yeah.
I think I was there.
I've never seen him more angry. Yeah, you were sitting right to the next to me. I was like, oh God.
And he
Scooch
knocked
over.
that guy
Yeah.
down. He
Oh, that
couldn't
was
say anything else
brutal.
after that. We're sitting there smiling, going,
But it's great. I mean, all the legislators that call and speak to Jim on other issues, right, that have nothing to
Oh,
do
I
with our
know.
Second Amendment
Yeah.
civil rights.
They even tossed him on that commission to redesign the seal, like out of nowhere. He's like, okay, sure.
but that goes to show you the
Absolutely.
respect that he has
Right.
Yes.
and that goal has provided to the Commonwealth for 50 years. So, but going into it, we have a lot going on in Massachusetts, and I get I get really emotional by it. I get really revved up, and Jim's like, you got to pretend like you're a doctor. You can't get emotionally involved. I'm like, no, I can't do this. And it bothers me because being part of Armed Women America, we hear personal stories of women's survival, whether it's domestic violence, they've been involved in a crime, or whatever it may be. And I get goosebumps every time because I hear their stories and I'm their voice when they can't be. And Renee and I talk about how these women come and they are victims. And by the time they're done with the class, with us, they are survivors, and that makes me happy to be able to be part of that. And so this bill, now law that's going on in Massachusetts, is affecting that, and it just makes me mad because it's just not fair.
Understandable, and I look at guys like you and John and our training core. I like to say, the training tree that John has, and the worse things get, the easier my job is, because I get to just throw rocks from a distance and say like, hey, look at what they're doing to us, and analyze things. And this job has kind of brought me out of a little bit of my hole, because I used to be like the research guy. That was my thing. Now I'm like, I don't know, what the hell, I'll go on TV. But I look at you guys and the trainers, and I'm like, all right, this actually hits your bottom line, and it actually hits like not just what you're talking about, but like it's also an entire industry in Massachusetts that is getting like hit with a cinder block.
Right.
So being able to advocate for those folks and for you guys is pretty cool.
And I
also
appreciate everything you do, really, seriously. So some folks might not really understand what's going on. So just to kind of recap, because we talk about this all the time, but we forget that there are new viewers that are coming on trying to figure out what's going on. There are people that are trying to figure out what's going on, and we've been telling them since almost 2 years ago, this is what's going on, and all of a sudden they're like, what? Wait, what's happening? But so February 6, 2023 is when Representative Michael Day started his listening tours. June 6th is when it ended. June 26, 2023 is when HD 4420 came out, and it's changed numbers 6 times, and the last number was H 4885, and now became a law, Chapter 135, Act of 2020.
Of the Acts of 2024.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and so here we are, right?
Yeah.
So this bill isn't just a piece of a bill; it's the entire bill that's attacking our civil rights. So, the gun laws that we currently know that are already confusing. Now here we are. So the listening tours were just basically listening tours with different subjects. So it could have been situational awareness, suicide and guns, domestic violence and guns, creating safer communities. Oh, look, gun violence. So it was, and then hunting and school shootings, and so it had everything to do. We went out in 9 out of 11 listening tours. We traveled 6 hours because we wanted them to see my face, to see our faces with Women for Gun Rights back then, the DC project, and so it was super, super crucial to be there. But here we are right now. So Mike, can you kind of fill us in to what this all means for us in the Commonwealth for the Sioux
boy.
community?
Good thing this is an
All right,
hour.
here we go.
We're doing an hour
You need
special.
that?
How much time you get, buddy? No, it's
If we weren't laughing, we'd be crying.
yeah. Well, I mean, not to get into the nitty gritty of this bill, because we've done that over and over again. Or I guess law. I have to stop saying that. I try to say statute, but I just have it in my head. But it's basically a complete overhaul of the entire subject of gun law in the Commonwealth. And you were talking about the listening tour earlier, and I was getting annoyed at that whole process from the beginning, because it was kind of a way to circumvent in a manner of speaking the public hearing process. It was kind of a way to be like, hey, we're gonna listen to all these folks that have to do with this industry and all this stuff, and then we're gonna do what we're gonna do anyways. So and it's true. Like, they were drawing this like weird nexus between some subject and guns for every single one of these. It was just a way to kind of, without like saying it out loud, like paint firearms owners as this like violent, weird population, and that's kind of where we ended up. So, like you said, I mean, 20 days after the listening tour ended, they all along have been telling us, oh, we have nothing drafted. Then all of a sudden, 20 days later, the fastest typewriter fingers in the world came out with a 145-page bill that was basically a gun control wish list of everything you could possibly think of, and we're pretty sure we know who wrote the bill and who didn't. But yeah, so now we're at the point where it is now statute. It looks a little bit different than the original version, HD 4420, but it's still a complete overhaul of the entire subject of gun law in the Commonwealth. It restricts what types of firearms you can own, what type of magazines you can own, where you can possess those magazines, where you can possess certain types of firearms. It has grandfathering dates of when those things are no longer illegal to own. It basically puts a moratorium on new licenses being issued in the Commonwealth until this new training curriculum can come out, this new training regime.
I have a question.
Sure.
So
Please
they
save me
passed,
from myself.
So the bill passed, it's a law, but yet they don't have any of this education in place yet.
No, so I mean,
So wait a minute, so what does that mean for the people who want to exercise their Second Amendment right now?
if you don't have a license, unless you have a really cool police chief, you're probably not going to get one until this new curriculum comes out.
I think what's going to happen is the Firearms Records Bureau, they're going to be ordered to not produce any new licenses.
Yeah.
But this also has such a detrimental effect on suicide prevention,
Yes.
and hunting and conservation. I mean, GOAL has worked with the Governor's Challenge Council to reduce suicide among veterans and their families, and we made some great leaps and bounds over
Yes,
this
you have.
past year. And now with some of the language in the current law,
Yeah.
right, that's going to put the kibosh on people being able to take firearms from people, from veterans and their families and others that are going through a rough patch that would have to be legally transferred. And then, of course, all the new regulations, new statutes for hunting in Massachusetts as non-residents,
Right.
And people that don't possess an LTC wouldn't be able to use a semi-automatic shotgun in waterfowl hunting, which is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So this new law just literally, as you stated, it affects every aspect
category
of gun ownership
Yes.
by our lawful gun owning community. It's maddening.
So it addressed everything. Did it address problems with gang violence? No?
No, I like
How about
these leading
mental health?
questions,
Did it
Renee,
help
and
with
I'm
mental
appreciating
health?
this. No,
Did it address mental health?
sure didn't.
Did it address
Oh wait,
crime?
it did expand the people that
Red
could
flag.
file a red flag.
Oh, and it expanded red flags out to people who don't have their gun license. But the only remedy for a red flag is that they'll take your non-existent gun license away.
It's
So the
silly.
whole bill is
is.
ridiculous, but when you're talking about the hunting aspect of things, really, that could also affect non-gun owners as well, right? I mean, because
Oh, certainly.
the Pittman and Robinson Act,
Oh yeah.
the just more in general, more animals out there on the roads, on the highways, which is
Absolutely.
ultimately going to end up being a problem. We already have deaths with people hitting deer. Now it's going to even be worse,
John
right?
Pajak would be a really good one to speak on
Yeah.
this.
I mean, you're getting into the weeds on this. I mean, there are more unintended consequences than pages of this bill, and that's saying something.
Very true.
And then more businesses are going to be shut down because they're not going to be able to handle all their whatever they have to as an FFL.
Economically, this
Economically,
is
it's a disaster.
for our community.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally a taking of guns, and the fact that hunters that come into the state, they spend millions of dollars on licensing fees
Yeah.
and food and beverage and hotel stays, boat rentals and things such as that. Travel to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard for the deer hunt. That's going to be all lost.
And
all
before
lost.
and I got to be honest. I mean, before we even get to the hunting aspect and non-residents, one of the things that we have always preached at GOAL, and one of the things that we're constantly told by the state is that training is so important. Training is part of being a responsible gun owner. Well, all of the best trainers don't live in Massachusetts. 2 of them do, but all of them don't live in Massachusetts. And the new non-resident restrictions can cause some serious issues for folks who we want to get, who GOAL would want to hire to come in and do some training classes
Right.
for us.
Right.
It could essentially
There's no
destroy
way.
their business
Well,
in
how about the
Massachusetts.
Armed Women of America? You know, every month you're meeting with these ladies and you're training with them, and some of them come from Rhode Island.
Yeah,
That
there's going to be, I haven't even addressed it yet because I don't even know what to tell them.
Yeah.
That's been the other thing about this bill that's been so hard is a lot of the aspects, people will ask us really specific questions and we say, we don't know yet.
Yeah, we don't know.
You know, even if it's worded a certain way in the bill, if there's another interpretation that's more strict and affects us more, we have a very unfriendly Attorney General,
absolutely,
who is going to probably interpret these provisions that are vague to her advantage, to her perceived advantage. I guess it's not really a fair way to put it, but
Right.
And then,
that's
of
the other
course, all
thing.
the regulations that are going to have to be
God.
created to make this licensing scheme work.
Or just make any of it work. I mean, honestly, the state police.
So disengagement tactics. Does anybody have any idea what that means?
Nice pair of running shoes.
Well said, right? The
What did
Nike
you say?
defense, as we
Yeah,
call
exactly.
that, right? The
What'd you
Nike
say?
defense.
A nice pair of running shoes.
There you go.
I mean,
Now we're forcing people that want to get an FID card for simple hunting purposes, having to take all these different subject matters in order to exercise a Second Amendment civil right, a constitutional right.
Right. Injury
So-
prevention, suicide prevention, disengagement, live fire.
And they've
let's see.
harmed us on the suicide prevention.
Yeah.
Right? We've already been working with the Walk the Talk America and the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Governor's Challenge to address suicide awareness and suicide prevention in our classes.
And as an instructors, we are required to go over that.
No, we're not required until October 23rd.
Right.
Currently, it's all been voluntarily.
Oh, okay. Well,
we have no criteria yet to teach this yet, right? They don't have
Yeah.
it for us yet.
and in addition, I mean, one of the things that we had asked them, this whole song and dance about how GOAL didn't work with the legislators after a while, and we just got angry and took our ball and went home. It is complete nonsense. I'm not going to say what I really think on this television program, but it's nonsense. It's bunk, because one of the things that we had asked them to address at the very beginning was, hey, let's make it easier for gun owners who might be afraid that they're going to lose their property or their rights after the fact, to go and seek the necessary help that they need.
Yeah.
Let them voluntarily go and say, like, hey,
Right.
I'm going through a tough time right now. Why don't my buddy A take my slide? Or if I don't have friends or family, I can go to an FFL and say, like, hey, will you guys hold on to this for a little while? And then once it goes on the FFL's books, they can't transfer it back to them anymore.
Right.
So why?
And a lot of people are, like I envision myself going through something like that. I'd lose everything I worked so hard for, just because I had a moment in my life which rocked me upside down, and I need help. And now you're going to make
And
it so I would not go get
the mental
help.
health aspect of
I'd
that.
be afraid to.
Think of it, to so many of us, being able to have a firearm, right, just in the house means so much to us, right? Our veterans, they fought so that we have that choice.
Right.
People that love to hunt, you take hunting away from them by way of disallowing them to possess guns. What does that do to one's mental health?
Right.
It doesn't benefit their
No.
mental health. Right, they're going to suffer from that.
Right.
So
Right, 'cause
this is
it's
an
part of their
upside down set of laws.
Right.
Big time. That's a great way to put it.
What was that, Renee?
It's part of their identity.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We discussed that at great lengths with the Governor's Challenge Council. Right, all these folks from the VA and private and public sector mental health services, they realize that this bill, this law, is terrible for that aspect of suicide prevention.
That's infantilizing.
Well, something that I look at when we look at all these things that they're going to tack on to what these citizens need to learn, with training comes payment, right? You're paying for these. The state's not giving this to you for
Unfunded,
free.
right.
Right. So now you have people that can't afford to live in this economy, and now you're telling them they have to do live fire, disengagement tactics, suicide prevention, injury prevention, and a slew of other things. It just seems like it's discrimination.
Yeah,
to me.
I was just going to say
And this is
that.
before we even get to the dry fire question. where they're implementing not dry fire.
Live fire.
Live fire
Yeah,
training.
I know.
The complete opposite of what I just
Well, that would
said.
save some money.
Literally the exact opposite of what I
Live
just
fire
said.
can absolutely benefit
It's
live
absolutely
fire.
beneficial, but it's literally
less expensive.
It's literally the opposite of what I meant. So, but they're talking about implementing live fire training, and one of the things that we've discussed with Nolan, you guys have had Nolan Howard on your show before. People who live in the city, that's his constituency. Folks who live in the city who want to exercise their Second Amendment rights are now going to have to figure out a way to get to a range, because we've been trying to coin this term range deserts, because in order to find a place where you can actually go and participate in live fire
because
training.
most clubs are private. So how are you going to?
Massachusetts is very unique.
We have zero state-funded
Very
ranges
unique.
in Massachusetts.
Right.
Yeah.
A few county ranges that I don't believe that are even operational
Well, I-
and
anymore.
some for-profit
Over
ranges, but that's about
200
it.
nonprofit rod and gun clubs in Massachusetts, but those are privately owned, funded by the membership.
I think what you
Nonprofit
mean is you can't just walk in without a membership, right?
Right.
No, I mean, well, how is an instructor supposed to provide this if they're not necessarily at a club that has a range available to
Right,
them?
right.
So there are instructors out there that
exactly.
they do classes at night, and
Additionally,
you
what
don't
gives
have the opportunity to use their indoor range because
Yeah.
most private clubs won't let you use that as part of your training.
Additionally,
only the outdoor range. so-
Exactly. I was going to say, additionally, what gives the state the right to take those facilities away from that private club and say you need to provide this service without compensation, without anything,
Right.
without any indemnification, without any additional insurance protection? It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
The state not providing any public ranges.
And then
tax on top.
let's talk about the investment as an instructor. I know that I'm very fortunate being part of Armed Women of America, that I have some resources available to get me to a certain point, but there's other classes where I had to pay for that out of my pocket. And there's other instructors that have definitely done the same, but that's another issue. So I know that we are going into the second part of our show, so stay tuned, we'll be right back.
I am a veteran, and my victory was finding the strength to be a champion.
I am a veteran. My victory is having a job I can be proud of.
America's veterans are on their most important tour, the tour of their lives.
My victory was finishing my education.
Mine is proving a disability is not a limitation.
At DAV, we're on a mission to help veterans get the benefits they've earned.
My victory is having my new battle buddy.
As veterans face their challenges, DAV is there to help for victories great and small.
I'm a veteran, and my victory is getting the help I needed to put my life back together.
DAV offers veterans of all generations a lifetime of support.
I am a veteran. My victory is being there for my family.
When America's veterans win, we all win. Help us support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us again. We left off talking about trainers, so instructors having the money that they need now to handle the new law and how much money they've already spent in themselves as being a good instructor. Because being a good instructor doesn't just necessarily mean you take a class and you're one and done. You constantly have to continue your education in different aspects. So, John, can you just kind of touch base on how you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great trainers are great students. You said it perfectly. We have to continue to train, but more than that, we have to remember that so many of our affiliated clubs that have been hosting training, also when we bring new members into the club, right? A lot of these clubs are requiring qualifications, which is an opportunity to allow new gun owners to fire guns. Like we've always said, GOAL believes that training is so important, but this is a civil right. This is a constitutional right. Great men and women have died so that we have the choice. So to require all of these additional requirements to exercise the Second Amendment arbitrarily is absolutely wrong, right? But we must remember so many of our affiliated clubs have been offering this because it's the right thing to do. So we want to make it as easy as possible for law-abiding citizens, and that's becoming more and more difficult every day to be a law-abiding gun owner in Massachusetts. We want to make this easy to attain for law-abiding citizens to get their license so that they can begin their journey into the Second Amendment civil rights community here in Massachusetts. We have great clubs for that. With regard to the training requirements, this is anybody's guess what this is going to look like, right? The state police, none of the state agencies that we've spoken with were brought into Day's office or Mariano's office and said, this is what we're trying to do. How do we make it work? Absolutely not. They were brought in and said, this is what we've done, make it work. Right. I've heard zero nice things about the leadership that created our current law. So we're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to wait for the Colonel of the State Police to figure out what these new requirements are going to look like, and then we're going to have to figure out, okay, how do we meet those requirements? How do we become certified, right, to teach these new requirements? Where are we going to teach these new requirements? Right. So this is
where are you going to be allowed to teach those new requirements?
Absolutely.
Well,
this is anybody's guess.
Because we don't know, like when this came to pass and it became a law, I have to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I sat there and cried for like a half an hour because I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? I'm like, I freaked out. I had that moment. And it's because of what we do every day with these women. And they called us up and now they're looking at us going, does that mean I can't get my license? I had a woman call me up and she's like, I can't get my license. I'm like, I don't know.
You know, my phone hasn't stopped ringing.
No, and it's just breaks your heart.
Can I take a class? I need a safety class. We've been saying this for years. If you want to get your license, hurry up
do it now.
and do it, because we don't know what's coming down the pipe. But I did get an email from Kristen from the state police saying to
who's
continue
wonderful.
to.
Let's put that out there. Kristen Ryan
she's
from the
so
state
good.
police, who is the administrator of all these programs under Rich Ridland. So Kristen handles all of the approved course curriculum, all of the course reports, and the application and renewal process for basic firearm safety certificate, basic firearm safety instructors, and she's wonderful.
Yeah, none of this is an attack on the state police or any of the other ancillary organizations. I mean, they're very put upon right now. There's a whole new burden. There's a whole slew of new burdens that are placed upon them, both financially and staff-wise, and they don't have the staff or the money to do this. Nothing in this bill is funded. That's a whole nother ball of wax that I don't know if we have time to get into today, but nothing in this bill is funded. It's huge
for the citizens of the Commonwealth, because it shouldn't cost you money to exercise. That's like saying, don't speak, Mike. We're taking your First Amendment away until you take a public speaking class, until you take an essay, and
typing class.
Oh no! Oh no!
Can you? You can't. If you can't type 80 words a minute, then you can't exercise your First Amendment.
I'm a law-abiding typewriter owner, guys.
Like, that's how bad it is, though, right?
Law-abiding printing press owner.
And there was something you said earlier about how some people are stating that GOAL didn't do anything, and I want to go back to the listening tour, because some people are saying, well, what's GOAL doing? What's GOAL been doing? GOAL should have done this earlier.
Can we give them a little bit of a pass and just say, like, who else are they going to get angry with?
Yeah,
it's okay. You can only get so mad at one specific group of people. It'd
be nice if they could direct their energy to becoming part of the solution.
Exactly.
I agree.
I guess that's
and we say that all the time when Carrie and I show up to these things, like that GOAL had in Boston. Was it last? When was it that we went to Boston?
September.
And we spoke.
We had the rally.
It was like a year ago.
Yeah, it was written.
What do you think? 300?
If that.
Ish.
Yeah, it was tough.
Right?
But we can't forget about the 5,000 plus we had after Maura Healey penned her assault weapons ban guidance or advisory.
It always seems to be after the fact where the bigger numbers show up. I mean, I'm guessing Saturday is going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
But it's because people have already been hit over the head, and they're like, oh my God, this happened.
But like we've been telling
we're mad
you.
now.
But going back to the sorry.
I wanted to hear about your email from Kristen Ryan. I think that's very appropriate.
Continue to teach. Do not stop teaching. Continue to teach.
Now, think of that for a moment. We have, evidently, the Colonel of the State Police has directed state police staff to ignore the implementation of certain acts of the new gun law.
It's anarchy, John.
That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Good point.
And I had a student who passed her paperwork in on August 31st or 30th, somewhere around there, and she got her license already.
That's great.
Already, she got
July
her license.
31st or?
July 31st.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just back from camp,
Yes,
so I haven't
sorry.
looked at a calendar in 2.5 weeks.
No, you're right. Oh, and we need to talk about camp, too.
Oh, junior conservation
You're right, it
camp,
was
certainly.
right before the end of July,
Yeah.
and she
man.
already got it.
That is shockingly
So
fast.
that's, yeah.
Good
Well,
for
I think-
her.
I
That's
think-
awesome.
Finally,
That's awesome. I'm
they met
jealous.
131E, right?
jealous.
They made it
That's
in the
awesome.
40 days. Listen, there are so many great police departments.
Oh,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So many great police chiefs, and I know that Mass Chiefs of Police, they supported this bill. The E-Board supported this bill.
That was just
That-
the
that's-
rank and file police chiefs, because think of it, with 4420, 100%
Unanimous.
of all Massachusetts police chiefs, including our university and college police chiefs, were against
Right.
4420, right?
Right.
And now all of a sudden,
And it kinda-
4885 comes forth, and unanimous support from Mass Chiefs of
Right.
Police Association, which we know is false. That was just the E-Board.
Right.
So we can't forget about all of these
Oh, they're
police
doing
chiefs
an amazing job, and I feel bad
that are
for 'em.
saying, you know, get those applications in. We'll get them
My
processed.
chief's amazing. My chief is awesome, and I appreciate everything. You know, he's like, get in here, real quick.
They're walking a
FID
razor
cards for
blade.
your kids. Hurry,
Absolutely
hurry.
they are.
You know,
Absolutely
but
they are.
What my point was, going back to the listening tours, is how, you know, when we went, the board or the panel didn't really have somebody on there that was an expert in firearms. Most of the times they weren't, and I know that you guys reached out to them quite often.
The three where they did have experts on firearms are the three where we gave them recommendations of people who they should put on. John Pajak, Toby. I'm sorry, it was four. John Pajak, Toby, John.
Yeah.
And we had Joe Morgan from
Right.
JC Arms on another
we
one.
We were
very, very involved.
very involved with that. So I just wanted to touch base on that, and also to talk about, you know, make sure that we get out and vote, because who we vote for matters right now.
Oh my God,
So
it's the huge-
if you're
it's the
not
biggest
happy
thing.
with who you have as a rep, or, you know, you got to vote. It matters. And I know people are really concerned about their vote counting. You have to vote. If you keep thinking that, they won.
So
They won.
I guess my question is, what is this 145-page bill that is now law fixing here in the Commonwealth? What is it that
It's
is
fixing to make a lot of good people move out of
No, but
Massachusetts, I'll tell
seriously,
you
there
that.
has to be something. Can you name something? I mean, for the other side who's saying we want to live in safe communities,
you
how
can-
is this making it safer? What is this
Oh,
law doing that's, what was
269,
broken
10H,
that we're fixing?
Point 0.08.
Yeah, I mean there's two things that I can think of.
Carrying an ATV.
Yeah, I mean you can strap your shotgun on your back and have your sidearm on an ATV
Other
if you're
than that-
off road.
Okay.
Now you don't have to put it in a
Well,
locked container or
the long gun has to be unloaded,
Container.
Yeah.
right? So we
Alright,
can
whatever.
carry. So just to be sure on that one, so we've
So you
been
can't drive by a
prohibited,
moose.
right, under 90B to have our loaded sidearm arm on our person
Prohibited.
while on an off-road vehicle, right? ATV, dirt bike, you name it. This would allow the carrying of a loaded sidearm on one's person, provided they have the LTC.
which is so
We still
backwards.
have to have the long guns unloaded and cased on off-road vehicles. And then,
Can we talk about how backwards
So you
the
can have a
drafting of that
loaded
is though?
handgun, but not a loaded long gun.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Why?
Correct. It's hunting law, right?
Oh,
You
okay.
can't have a loaded long gun for purposes of hunting in a motorboat, right? Motorboat has to be stopped, right? Motor can't be running. So that's all
hunting
hunting
stuff.
regulations been on the books for a
It's just
long
so
time.
silly. It's just
But to
nonsense.
prohibit somebody from having a loaded handgun who's properly licensed
Right.
while on their property, on their own ATV, has always been ridiculous.
I bet you King George didn't want George Washington to have loaded muskets on rowboats going over the Connecticut River to get the Hessians.
And
Hunting Hessians.
we can't have our loaded magazines, so we have what the state defines under 121, Chapter 140, Section 121. We have a definition for large capacity feeding device, a magazine for rifle or pistol that holds more than 10 cartridges. In America, they just call them magazines. So I guess now we're not allowed to store any large capacity feeding device that is pre-ban in our homes. We can only have them loaded at our places where we can shoot. But I think the other part of the bill that I think we can all agree on, what codifies .08 BAC.
Yeah, it's
Right.
the same as for drunk driving.
Yes, so
Yeah.
currently
0.08.
under, let me see, 269-10H, you can't have a firearm on your person or under your direct control while under the influence of marijuana, the vapors of glue,
Hey.
alcohol, stimulants, narcotics, prescribed or not, right?
Vapors
And
of
we all
glue,
agree with that.
yes.
Right? All agree with that. But the problem was, what is under the influence,
Right.
with regard to alcohol? So the state now has kind of signed
Officially
on
codified it.
with .08 BAC. So
Which
if
is
you
great.
shouldn't be driving a car, you shouldn't be having a firearm or rifle or shotgun under your control.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the only example of them giving us specifics in this bill that I can think of. So that's one of
Yeah,
the
so
things.
they didn't really change that. They just
No.
made it clear.
Well, they just gave us a specific number, and that's been one of the bigger complaints that I've heard since I started at GOAL is the laws are so hard to follow, they're really confusing. What the hell?
Right.
And so one of our big things when they said, hey, we're going to overhaul the gun laws, we were like, let's give you the list of specifics we need. And we walked through all of these things, and the only one that they even glommed onto in any capacity is that one.
So
And, yeah.
going to John.
And they knew that we were threatening to sue
Yeah.
over 90B and the ATV laws.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Because I was a plaintiff.
I have
Yeah.
a question about that.
Was going to be a plaintiff.
So, we field a lot of questions because we're leaders of these different organizations. One of the questions is, when is GOAL going to sue?
Oh, God.
And it's like, oh God,
favorite
okay,
thing
so,
ever.
so historically, that was never really GOAL's purpose as an organization, right? Maybe they have been involved
We
with
were
some
created
lawsuits, but
for advocacy
Yes.
and training.
Right.
That's between GOAL and the GOAL Foundation. It was advocacy and training. But over the past number of years, we've had to morph our mission. Now, we've been
Yeah.
involved in several court cases over the past 10
Advocacy has
years.
changed its stripes.
Absolutely, it has. Well said.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely.
And
So.
I always thought that question was funny. I'm like, it's not a law yet, guys.
Yeah,
The-
and that's
the-
another thing.
the
You
active-
can't do that.
The active
Until it becomes a
word
law.
in lawsuit is law.
right.
You can't.
So GOAL's primarily was involved with stopping the bill before it
Correct.
became
Yes.
law, and then other organizations, once it became
We're the
law,
dam, not
they
the
did the
sandbag.
litigation. So, but now it's kind
Yeah.
of changing a little.
A lot.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of redirecting some of our efforts. Like we're the dam, not the sand. Originally, we were the dam, not the sandbag.
Right.
We're trying to hold stuff back, and kind of keep things from happening before it got to the point where we would have to sue for them.
Right.
It's a separation of powers issue. It just where you want to direct your energy.
Right.
Everybody knows the executive branch executes the law, the legislative branch makes the law, and the judicial branch interprets the law.
Very few people know that now.
That's
that's
true.
the hard
Right.
part.
Which is
Did he say
unfortunate.
everybody knows?
Well,
Very
that's-
few.
that's Civics 101. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the Constitution. That's how it's set up. That's why we have that. So, when the legislature, they're like, oh, how come you can't sue the legislators for making a law that's unconstitutional? I'm like, because that's what they do. They make laws, and then the court has to say, oh, well, you couldn't do that, guys. This isn't how this works. And I always tell people, I'm like, listen, we have a reactive legal system for a reason. A reactive legal system keeps us free. If we have things like pre-crime and thought crime, and they can say like, hey, before you say that, you can't say it. That's not really being a free person.
Right.
So you have to do the thing, and then have it questioned after the fact and be like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. We're not gonna punish you for this yet, but in the future, going forward, you can't do that. That's part of liberty. That's why we're
And this
free.
is why GOAL is very,
Yes.
very fortunate to have you.
So how would
But-
anyone know that wasn't a member of GOAL
That was my microphone.
about
CIA.
this new law? Like how are they not going to be felons? How are they going to know? Does the state send a letter to all the gun owners and say, okay, this is the new law that came into effect?
So John has been teaching for decades at this point the Massachusetts gun law courses.
Massachusetts gun law for citizens class.
And that is that it's part of your it's part of your, not even just a gun owner, it's part of your responsibility as a citizen of the United States to be civically minded and to understand the laws that you live under. That ignorance of the law is no excuse. You guys have all heard that.
Of course. But like if Massachusetts, there was a time when you didn't need to wear a seatbelt. But then when you had to wear a seatbelt, there were commercials
PSAs.
everywhere.
PSAs, sure.
PSAs everywhere. So everyone knew that you had to wear a seatbelt because the state made sure that everybody knew. They put it on signs, billboards, commercials. What are they doing for the gun owners of Massachusetts? How are
More
they
than what they've already done to us.
Well, they did it to us, not for us. What are they doing for us to help us?
No.
I don't know, what did
They
they
do
do
it for everyone
What did they do
else.
back in 2014 when we told them they had to come out with PSAs on
Yeah,
safe storage, things like
1998.
that?
I mean, we're still discussing the implementation of laws from 1998. There's so many people that are ignorant to the changes from 1998, let alone 2014. It's going to be years, possibly decades, before we have a handle on 4885.
Yeah, I mean, and this is again another symptom of the fact that this is unfunded.
Right.
So the fact that there's no funding attached to any of this, there's no line items from the budget. So a line when you hear the phrase like line item veto and line items, all this stuff thrown around, it's an actual account number from the budget. It's an 8-digit account number that's assigned to something to fund it.
Right.
So in order to fund something, you need to do like, oh, we're taking funds from this account to apply to this program. In one of the oddities of the Massachusetts Constitution is the governor is afforded line item veto. The president doesn't even get to do that for Congress. So, and what that means is if there is a funding mechanism, a specific account attached to a provision in a law, the governor can go in and strike it out completely. So the strategy for legislators moving forward is when they want to get something done without having to worry about the governor funding it or not, they'll do what's called an unfunded mandate, where they will just say, hey, this is the program, it's the law now, you better do it, executive branch. And then the Secretary of Administration and Finance, working with the governor, can decide what the priorities are and assign funding to it or not.
Right.
And even though there's no funding attached to it, it's still the law.
So, but exactly. So let's go back to John. You just came back from the Massachusetts Junior Conservation
Something
Camp.
fun to talk about. Finally.
Oh,
Let's
did
go.
we have a great time.
But could this bill also affect that? Why don't you explain what it is?
Oh, you're making
and
it
what they
unfun.
do and how amazing it was.
We're going to do the sandwich now.
Interestingly enough, so the Massachusetts Junior Conservation Camp, happy to say, this is our 75th year.
Oh,
and it's been
wow.
a project of Gun Owners Action League and the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, Department of Conservation and Recreation, and Massachusetts Environmental Police Officers. So it's a 2-week adventure for boys and girls sleepover camp, 13 through 17. And the subject matter is all things fishing, hunting, conservation. We have biologists from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. We had Sasha and Kelly. Sasha's one of the directors for Fish and Wildlife. She's involved in fish programs. And she brought up, I think, 50 bass.
Oh, wow.
And scalpels. And the kids dissected and removed all the organs from the fish. It was amazing to see. Yeah. I get to put on a shooting sports show. The kids, boy, ammunition-wise, we fired over 5,000 rounds of shot shells, probably 15,000 rounds of .22 caliber, not to include our Scholastic Action Shooting Introduction Day, which is pistol shooting, semi-automatic pistols, 9mm and .22 at steel plates. We have a lot of black powder, so just an immersion into firearms and firearm safety. Hunter Ed volunteers come up, they put on Hunter Ed programs
That's
for
awesome.
the kids.
Way
So
cool.
all the campers leave with their Hunter Ed certificate.
And do you do
Oh
from
wait,
field
I'm
to
not
table?
done.
Oh.
There's more, right? There's more. So field to table, we had folks from Mass Trappers Association come up, and the kids literally dispatched and then butchered rabbit, squirrel,
Wow.
quail, beaver. Let's see, Massachusetts Conservation funds, they purchase a red stag from a deer farm in Connecticut. So we have an optional program day, and 20 kids get to participate in that. They literally, from field to table, over a course of several hours. This year, we were super fortunate to be able to feed the camp a game dinner. We had bear, we had moose, quail, squirrel, a rabbit, a lot of venison stew, venison chili, venison tacos, and then later the staff had some venison quesadillas.
Nice.
Delicious.
Cool.
But it's an amazing camp experience, and so many of our camp graduates go on to find careers in wildlife biology. Former state rep George Peterson was a camp graduate.
Peter Durand?
Peter Durand was up there, my state senator. He came up.
But the newest senator, Peter Durand.
I think he's great. Did he have a great time? He
sure.
fired, not to get off topic, he did a hip shot on the clay target range. He blasted a clay target with the buttstock down here, holding the forend up here, nowhere near his line of sight.
Wow.
Pull. Blasted that
No
clay
way.
target.
Wow.
Boy, were the
This is
kids
party
impressed.
trick.
And you're like, kids,
If he's a
don't do
one-trick
that.
pony, that is one cool trick to have.
It's going to have to be an early party trick now with this new law.
So now the
Before it gets
question on the
thrown away.
table is, how does this affect the camp? Well, it's not going to affect the camp per se, but it's going to affect the kids later on in life. So here they are, camp championships in shotgun. All of the people that placed chose to fire a 12-gauge semi-automatic shotgun. Now they get their FID cards at 15. They get their ability to purchase a semi-automatic shotgun when they're 18 under state and federal law until October 23rd. So now you have all of these 18-year-old men and women that are not going to be able to purchase a semi-automatic shotgun for competition, right? Clay targets. Think of it, there are, I think we're up to over 400 colleges and universities that participate in the Scholastic Clay Target programs, right, in the Scholastic Action Shooting programs. Kids from Massachusetts, they're not going to be able to purchase semi-automatics to participate in those items. There are exemptions for incorporated clubs, but what about the 18-year-old person that wants to buy that gun for competition or for hunting? It's
or continue their education after going to
training
such an
and
amazing
education,
camp.
right? This bill is all about gun safety.
Sure.
Baloney. It has nothing to do with gun safety. It's disarmament 101, and if anybody doesn't see that, I don't know what more information we can provide
Does
for you.
Pittman and Robbins, if I'm saying it right, sorry, I always say it
Pittman
wrong.
Robinson Act.
Yep. Does the funding, because I'm looking at this, it says ammunition 30%, firearms 29%, pistol, revolvers 34%, archery equipment 7%. All of that is taxes. Does that go back into camps like that?
Per se, right? So my time up at the camp is unfunded, right? GOAL continues with my salary. I'm up at the camp for 2 weeks. We pay the director, we pay the staff, we pay the cooks and the food, but like Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, they send educators up there. They're wildlife biologists. The folks from Department of Conservation and Recreation for fire prevention implementation, wilderness firefighting and things like that. That's all covered through their budgets.
Right.
So is that going to suffer a hit? Absolutely, because there's now less money going in to those agencies by way of the Pittman-Robertson Act.
Which is crazy, because, I mean, I printed this out this morning. I'm like, wow, like I never really looked deeply into it.
And a lot of money.
And it just really is truly going to affect whether you're a gun owner or not. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you're seeing this show right now, I urge you to go to GOAL's website, go to goal.org's website, and look. I beg you, I urge you, if you're a gun owner or not, look at what the implementations are that's going to affect the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And if you are a gun owner and you don't know what's going on, again, I urge you to please take a look at that. Contact GOAL. We can help you learn how to advocate and understand what's going on. You can go to our site. We have a summary page as well.
And you don't
if you
have
just
to be a
want to
member
learn,
for that.
no, you don't.
That's
Even if you
one
just want to
beauty of
learn
it.
about the bill, goal.org/gun ban.
Yep.
It'll tell you pretty much everything you need to know about the bill itself. But yeah.
But that's that. So I love hearing you talk about the camp though, because it just makes me smile, and you sent a bunch of pictures when I was camping last week. I was in New Hampshire, and it just makes me smile so much.
I went to the camp when I was
Oh my gosh.
15.
My kids are
sponsored by. Oh, they are. Oh, they are.
Absolutely go.
You wish you could go, Mike.
I
Let's
do.
be serious.
We've talked about
Well, he
an
was telling
adult
me, he's like,
camp
"Oh,
with
you
the
guys
same
should
subject matter.
I think that would be
Where are we
great.
going to find the time? Where are we going to find the
So
time?
our range that we belong to, we sponsor two
Yes.
kids every year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's awesome.
That's way
And then they
cool.
come back. So the only requirement that we ask of them is that they come back and give us a little report on what
They tell you how much fun they had?
And they have such a good time. And it's so fun to see their faces light up.
That's
And it
cool.
really
Yeah.
is. It's an
But it-
opportunity
It
that
gives me optimism for the future. It really
Does.
does. These
Yeah.
kids were so polite and so respectful. Just great kids.
But when you teach kiddos like that, they are going to spill out everything they learn to all the other kids that they are friends
Yeah.
with. And it's unfortunate they don't have something like that in the school system, like a archery program. I did archery when I was in junior high.
Me too.
No more. I don't think that's even allowed.
That's come back
You know,
quite a bit.
That's good.
It really
but
has.
even like a
no
rifle,
firearms.
right? And
Not even
that's
air
unfortunate
guns.
because
That's an
and when
Olympic
you're
sport.
doing that and you're creating safer communities by educating ultimately our future.
We see a reduction in firearms accidents.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So unintended and accidental discharges. Right? We see good kids. You show me a kid that grew up hunting and fishing or participating in the shooting sports, and I'll show you a great adult.
Yep, exactly, and I totally agree with that. But I can't believe it. We got 2 more minutes left,
that
but
was
I
fast.
have goosebumps because every time I get to talk about this, it really revs me up and makes me and reminds me how important it is to fight for our civil rights and be a voice for those that can't and educate people as much as I can. And I can't thank you guys enough for allowing me to be part of GOAL because it really means the world. And
I tell you,
my
I'm
sister
very,
from
very
another
proud
state.
of the two of you, right? Having been your
is cool.
training counselors, to see you just grow up to be great fighters for all things that mean a lot to our way of life in the firearms community. So keep doing what you're
Or
doing.
just as Americans.
Thanks.
It's part of our culture.
It absolutely
It's
is.
not just we're not the sole practitioners of this. Everybody has this right, unless you're a felon. But everybody has this right. If you don't practice it or exercise it, you still have it.
Right,
It's something that needs to be preserved. It's
Well
important.
said.
absolutely. We need to preserve
It's
it.
not just
preserved.
our domain. It's for everybody.
Right, I agree. And if you take one right away, it's all the
It's a domino.
Domino effect.
Domino effect, absolutely. But
Especially this one.
so again, if you want to reach us, you have questions regarding our show, Sisters in Arms 2022@gmail.com. Again, go to the GOAL's website, goal.org. Did I say that right?
You
goal.org.
did.
And thanks again for joining the show. We greatly appreciate it. My sister from another mister. Love you, girl. Thank you guys for joining
Our
us.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Until next time.